Section 3.1, Graphing Linear Equations. Essential question. How do you identify the x and y intercepts from a table or a graph? Well, the x-intercept is where the line on the graph crosses the x-axis. So x-intercept, where does it cross the x-axis? So then that would mean that the y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. How do you find the x and y intercepts from this graph? So if you're taking notes on this lesson, I would make sure when you're drawing this graph that you have the labels, so the title, the y-axis label, the x-axis label, and then I would make sure that you graph the number 14 and the number 10,000 along with the line. So if you don't want to put all the numbers, the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, the 2,000, 4,000, 6,000, 8,000, you don't need to. But make sure you have what I circled in red along with the line. So after we find the intercepts, it says using the labels, what do the intercepts mean in the graph? So let's start with the x-intercept. So the x-intercept is where the line crosses the x-axis. Now remember, this one is the x-axis, this one is the y. I always think of a yo-yo goes up and down, so the y-axis goes up and down. Where my line crosses the x-axis is right here at positive 14. So that is my x-intercept. Keep in mind your intercepts aren't a coordinate point, it's just one number. What number is it crossing the axis at? Now in order to interpret what this intercept means, I'm going to actually write the coordinate point. So that coordinate point is 14, 0. And I'm going to make sure I use these two numbers when I'm describing the meaning. So the 14, 0, if I go, 14 is my x coordinate, so my x label is time. So that means that after 14 hours, because that's what the time is hours, then I look at the 0, which is my y coordinate. Well, our y label is the volume in gallons. So after 14 hours, there are 0 gallons of water left. So watch how I used both the parts of my graph and the numbers 14 and 0 in my answer. So the 14 gets mentioned. I have 0, so make sure you have both of those two numbers in your meaning. And then I also used my labels. So the x label was time, so that's where I talked about hours. My y label was gallons. Here's where I talked about the gallons. So all of those things get mentioned in my meaning. So let's try practicing that with the y-intercept again. So the y-intercept, where my line crosses the y-axis, is right here where I just made a blue dot. So that number is 10,000. So I'm going to write my coordinate point as 0, 10,000, and I'm going to make sure the numbers 0 and 10,000 both get used in my meaning. So 0 this time is my x coordinate, so that means after 0 hours, and then I need to use my y, which is 10,000. That's how many gallons there are. So after 0 hours, there are 10,000 gallons of water in the pool. So So watch again how I used the number 0 in my meaning, the number 10,000, and then I used my labels. X label is hours, that went with the 0. Y label is gallons, that went with the Y. So that's what you have to do for that problem. All right, let's try another one of those. So again, we're going to find the X and Y intercepts from the graph, and then we're going to interpret their meaning. So on this one in your notes, I would make sure you have orthodontic payments as a label, the remaining balance, number of $85 payments, and then the two end numbers of our line. All right, so let's start with the x-intercept again. So where my line crosses the x-axis is right here at 60. And then I can label that coordinate point as 60, 0, and I'm going to use both of those numbers when I'm writing my meaning. So I have to look at 60 is my x-axis is the number of $85 payments. So after 60, so I use that first number, $85 payments, then this 0 means for the Y, that's my remaining balance. So after 60 $85 payments, the balance is 0. So I've paid off my braces after I make 60 $85 payments. All right, and then the y-intercept. So my line crosses the y-axis right here at 5,000. So that coordinate point is 0, 5,000. So I'm going to go to my x first. So now I've made 0, 45 payments. So after 0, $85 payments. And then my y is 5,000, so that's my remaining balance. The balance is 5,000. So I haven't paid anything for my braces yet. I owe all $5,000 of that cost. All right, now we need to find the x and y intercepts from a table. Now I want to go back a slide and watch you notice and have you notice what number was in both of my coordinate points when I was finding my intercepts. So look at what number is in both of those ordered pairs. It's 0. So that's what we need to look for in our table. Where do we see the zeros? Well, we see a 0 here in that ordered pair and a 0 here in this ordered pair. So that's going to help us figure out our x-intercept and our y-intercept. So when y is 0, my x-intercept is whatever this number is. So my x-intercept, because it's under the x column, is -8. And then when x is 0, my y-intercept is whatever the y number is. So 6. So look for those zeros. Whatever number is under the x column is your x-intercept. Whatever number is under the y column is your y-intercept. All right. Again, we're going to find the x and y intercepts, and this time we have to interpret the meaning from the table. So my x-intercept and y-intercept. So again, let's look at the ordered pairs with zeros. This one has a 0, and this one has a 0. And even though these aren't labeled x and y, we always know x is on the left, y is on the right. So if I want my x-intercept, I have to look for the number under the x column. So my x-intercept is 4. Now let's interpret the meaning for that one. That ordered pair is 4, 0. So let's look at our labels. The 4 is the time in hours. So after 4 hours. And then the Y column is the miles. I've traveled. I have 0 miles left to travel. 0 miles are left to travel. So I use the numbers 4 and 0, 4 and 0. Then if I need my y-intercept, the number under the y column is 248. So my ordered pair is 0, 248. So those are the two numbers I need to use in my meaning. So my x column is time in hours. So after 0 hours, 248 miles are left to travel. So I use my 0 and my 248. All right. So now we have two multiple choice problems that we're going to look at to find the answers for. So this one on the left here, number 51, it says, what are the x and y intercepts of the graph of the function? So let's look at where our line crosses the x-axis and where it crosses the y-axis. So my line crosses, right here is our x, here is our y. So our line crosses the x-axis right here, which is -3. And our line crosses the y-axis right here, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So which one has -3 and 6? Letter A. And then number 53, which is the best estimate for the x-intercept of the graph of the linear function represented in the table. So you guys notice that they say best estimate. Here's why they say estimate. Because if you look here, we have the y-intercept, which is 5 in the table, but we don't have an x-intercept. We would need to know what it is if our y was 0. So if I added 0 into the table, it would be right here, in between 1 and -1. So then I have to look at what number would be in between 2 and 3, because 0 is right in the middle of 1 and -1. Well, what number is in between 2 and 3? 2.5. So let's look at our answer choices. Was between 0 and 1? Nope. Between 2 and 3? Yep, 2.5 is in between 2 and 3. So the answer is B.